My guest today is an experienced transactional lawyer.
The whole model of a law firm is up and eventually out unless you manage to rise to the top. So for a lot of lawyers, they're not expected to rise to the top. And I think with that comes a lot of stress.
Dealing with lawyers is a bit tricky, and you guys have a reputation of being always the nice guys.
If you put yourself out there, they're there to shoot you down. That has not been my experience. That was my fear, but not my experience.
People, let's keep it a secret.
And the other reason was that I had lots of friends who were starting up their own businesses, which I thought was incredibly exciting and interesting. And I felt that at that time, my value add was being the lawyer that they couldn't afford to hire at my old firm. So you keep focusing on what's important to you and you keep messaging that. And what you find is really interesting. You find that people you've never met start interacting with those values. So yeah, that's been my journey.
That's impressive. Hello, Inners community. My guest today is an experienced transactional lawyer with a wealth of legal expertise gained from leading international law firms such as Simmons & Simmons, DLA Piper, and Dentons. An astute mind who worked closely with renowned institutions including the Royal Bank of Scotland, Barclays Bank, and the Standard Chartered Bank. This native Londoner has also lived and worked in Singapore and Tokyo before choosing Dubai as his new home. Welcome, Jamie Tredgold. Welcome to the Inners.
Thank you so much, Ali. It's an honor to be here. Thank you very much.
Thank you for taking the time and being with us. We're looking forward to the session. Do I have to sign any NDA before starting this?
No, strictly confidential between us.
Oh, okay. People, let's keep it a secret. Dealing with lawyers is a bit tricky, and you guys have a reputation of being always the nice guys. What do you say about that?
Yeah, I think that's right. I think lawyers have got a reputation for being very pessimistic. We're the guys that get called in when things go wrong. And to a certain extent, I think that's fair. But I think where lawyers really add value is when they are really involved at an early stage throughout a client's journey, a company's journey, because prevention is always better than cure, I think. So the more we can ingrain and understand your businesses and integrate, I think the more useful and friendly we become.
I would tend to agree with you. I rest my case, Your Honor. Jamie, you have had a very unconventional career as far as I know. Can you walk us through it? I think it's more of a roller coaster ride.
Yeah, I think, it started fairly traditional. So I studied law at university. I didn't really want to answer the big career question. When you're young, what do you want to do with your life? It's always terrified me. And law felt like a fairly safe path. You study hard, you get the grades, you fall into a law firm, and the next kind of 5 to 6 years of your life are kind of mapped out for you. But I think, law firms, like a lot of, it's not just exclusive to law firms, but law firms they're a pyramid structure. So the whole model of a law firm is up and eventually out unless you manage to rise to the top. And, so for a lot of lawyers, they're not expected to kind of rise to the top. And I think with that comes a lot of stress, a lot of pressure, mental health. You're really working hard to try and make it to the top. Work-life balance kind of goes out the window. And I think a lot of lawyers, not until very late in their career, ask whether or not the sacrifice is worth it, whether it's what they truly want from life. And I think, that happened to me. I moved from London to Tokyo, back to London, then to Singapore. Fantastic experience. Met my wife, whilst traveling as a lawyer. So very rich experiences, worked with some amazing people, some amazing clients all over the world. But you're very constrained by that model. And I think where I really gone on a journey of self-discovery in recent years is kind of stepping away from that treadmill, being okay with that. Often when you leave law firms, people question your decision. You're made to feel like you're making a mistake. And it's not until you step out of a big prestigious law firm, you realize there's a whole big wide world. Most of the world don't like lawyers. And there's a whole new opportunity to explore and grasp. So yeah, that's been my journey.
That's impressive. but let's redeem this reputation. What is the purpose of a lawyer?
Well, I think there are many things lawyers can do. I mean, one thing I've always found working in my career is that you work with incredibly smart people. So one thing a lawyer is a good sounding board. If you have a business challenge, you're unsure of how to navigate a new venture, lawyers by and large have been there. They've seen the whole spectrum of different businesses, different issues. They're really there to help you navigate and make sure that you're not only complying with the law, which everyone has to do, but also making sure that you're kind of executing in an efficient way, in a way that kind of is proportionate to your risk appetite. Lawyers are also there to make sure that when things go wrong, your interests are protected, that you're managing risk for your business in the right way. But I think I would come back to the fact that, lawyers are incredibly smart and have a wealth of experience. So just because you're facing an issue, a lawyer's probably seen it various times over. I think that's where lawyers add real value.
Excellent. And your journey, I think it adds more perspective and more cutting edge to what you can provide your clients, having been through different countries, different firms, and even financial entities. How do you see that as a competitive advantage?
Yeah, I mean, I think us English lawyers have a real advantage because English law is used all over the world. Outside the US, Asia, Middle East, Europe, English law is kind of, it's got a lot of history. People feel very reassured that they know what the rules are, they know what the outcome's going to be, and that builds business confidence and trust. So I think that's played a big part in my ability to kind of travel and help people because, if you're a business lawyer, you're there to enable businesses to work and you're there to help them resolve problems. And I think that transcends a lot of places and jurisdictions.
Okay.
So I think for me, as I mentioned, one of the issues as you kind of become more senior in your traditional legal career, you're encouraged to specialize. And, that's advantages in that. You become very good at what you do. But one of the disadvantages is that, if that area of law becomes redundant because the market's changed, or if it's because you yourself have kind of lost passion for what you're doing, you find yourself 8 years down the line kind of struggling with a choice you made 8 years ago. And that was one of the challenges I had when you're transitioning from different jurisdictions, specializing heavily in one area, and your interests change. Life changes as you get older, priorities change. The legal framework is very rigid. The career framework is very rigid in that sense. So for me, being able to kind of step away from that was a huge leap of faith, which I couldn't have done without support of family and friends. But for me, it really enabled me to kind of develop other interests, other passions, become much more creative in my work. Setting up a new business, as any entrepreneur will know, you don't have money. You've got to draft the agreements yourself. You've got to design the website yourself. You've got to go network. You've got to really step out of your comfort zone. And that's where I think things like building a network, just taking the plunge, lawyers naturally aren't particularly great at selling themselves. Mm-hmm. And I think it's a real stepping outside your comfort zone to go and do that, walk into a room with people you don't know, where you're not there to talk about something you know deeply as a topic, and just mingle and then try and sell whatever venture you're looking to build. It's a real struggle, I think, not just for lawyers, for lots of people. And I think for me, that has been the biggest journey of discovery, knowing that it's okay. People are interested in your story. People want you to succeed. They're not out there judging you. I think everyone worries that, if you put yourself out there, they're there to shoot you down. That has not been my experience. That was my fear, but not my experience. By and large, people want to see you succeed. They want to know how they can help. And also, they're just not worried about you, right? Everyone's got their own problems. They're worrying about themselves. Yep. And that, I think, once you've learned that, it takes away a lot of the fear from making that leap, I think, into a more entrepreneurial path.
Okay. What have you done as an entrepreneur?
So when I left the big law firms, I set up a legal consultancy. And the idea behind that...
Where was that?
So this was in Singapore.
Okay.
the reason for doing that was twofold. One, I'd spent 8 years in big law firms and was probably a little bit burnt out by the experience. And so for me, I wanted to, one, just buy a bit of time before leaping into something all-consuming again. I wanted to kind of build a bit of time buy a bit of time to figure out longer term what I really wanted to do, what my purpose would be, and what my interest and where my interest lied. And the other reason was that I had lots of friends who were starting up their own businesses, which I thought was incredibly exciting and interesting. And I felt that at that time, my value add was being the lawyer that they couldn't afford to hire at my old firm. So that was kind of the initial plan behind starting my own business. And what I found launching that enterprise, one, again, you've got to sell yourself. And that was an uncomfortable experience, but one I ultimately really enjoyed, because what you're trying to do there is connect with people, understand their issues and understand how you can add value. And I think if you're operating in that space, it's much more comfortable than just being, for me, a salesperson. But what it also meant was that I had a more creative outlet for my work life, which was designing a website. Never done that before, terrified me, but it's doable. And kind of looking at how other people were doing it, building an image and a brand that you are proud of and that feels authentic to you was incredibly rewarding for me.
Jaimie, I can hear the passion when you're talking about this journey. I wish everyone sees it from your perspective, because it's definitely more human and more personalized, and it's not just transactional. How about Tokyo?
Yeah, well, Tokyo was without doubt the best time of my life. So before that, I'd gone to university. I hadn't got a job at a law firm straight out of university, so I had to live at home in London with my parents while I was trying to get that opportunity. And then managed to get the opportunity, but when you start out in law, it's only 2 years. So for me, there was still some uncertainty about what happens in 2 years' time. So I'd spent all that time living with my parents. So Tokyo was the first time that I'd really, since university, moved abroad. And talk about moving abroad. You're moving to the other side of the world from the UK. When I landed, I remember it was a steamy night in Tokyo City, and it was, it's like something out of Blade Runner. It's like stepping out onto another planet.
Wow.
And I immediately fell in love with the fact that it was such a foreign place, but so exciting. I think it was the language I didn't understand, the humidity, the neon lights everywhere. Like it was first impressions were amazing. And then 2 weeks after I'd been there, Lehman Brothers collapsed. So here's me aspiring to be an international finance lawyer, and the banking crisis kicks in. And the world just seems to be imploding while I'm sat at my desk in this amazing place. And it was just a real mix of emotions. And whilst it was a very uncertain time, it was also meant that I had lots of time to explore the city, not a lot of work being done. And I was lucky enough that we had a bunch of lawyers from other law firms who all kind of get to know each other very early, because no one speaks Japanese. So you find your people, your tribe. And one of those people just happened to be my wife, who was working at another law firm. I wouldn't say it was love at first sight. It took she took a little bit of persuading. But over the course of 6 months I was there, we had a lot of fun. We spent Christmas together, trips to Okinawa, the islands around Japan. It was just a fantastic experience. And one that changed my life.
Wow, you have just restored my faith in lawyers, and that it could even turn into a wonderful love story.
Yeah.
Love conquers all, right? You never know. You never know how life would take turns and lead you to find your right partner.
Yeah, and then it's interesting because eventually we returned to London.
Okay.
All of us lawyers in Tokyo returned to London to finish our training. My relationship with my now wife continued, but we had that yearning after a few years to kind of go back to Asia, and that led us to Singapore, where we started a young family, and that then precipitated the move to Dubai. So that's kind of how we've ended up here. Just taking that initial leap, getting out of our comfort zone in the UK, exploring the world, and it's led to a fantastic journey. Yeah.
As they say, fortune favors the brave.
Indeed.
And here you are. And of course, I cannot help but ask, why Dubai?
Dubai has always appealed for a lot of reasons. From an expat perspective, living in Asia, Dubai is much closer to family back in the UK. So from that perspective, it's the center of the world, really, Dubai. So, all the benefits that has as a British expat. But I think from a professional perspective, setting up a business in Singapore was tricky, especially a legal business, because it's a very closed market. They're very protective of their local law firms. It's very much a high, there's very low risk appetite in Singapore, I would say. Whereas Dubai felt like a complete, fresh breath of air. You can tell that it's a very progressive place. They are open to expansion. They are open to growth. And it feels like people have a lot more freedom here to explore opportunities. Of course, you have to be compliant with the laws, but there is a very different growth mindset here, I would say, in the Middle East. And I think Dubai is probably at the heart of that.
Wow, this is amazing. How do you see the legal landscape over here being in a very new or young, still very growing country? How adapting and adaptable to the needs of the market and everything and all of the uncertainty that's been going on in the world, especially in the last years?
The UAE is a super interesting legal environment. Historically, you've always had Sharia law, onshore UAE law, and I think that has probably been a hindrance to international businesses operating here. But you've seen the emergence of the DIFC, the AGM, both international financial free zones. They adopt a system of law that is much more akin to English law. And that has, I think, really helped fuel the growth of international business here. A lot of foreign businesses, a lot of foreign investors draw a lot of comfort from the legal systems of the DIFC, the ADGM, the court system. I think there's a lot of nervousness around Islamic proceedings onshore, but having an international court system in two of the leading financial free zones, it makes us, I think that's kind of helped precipitate the growth and the boom that you've seen in Dubai.
Excellent. And if we want to get more technical and dig deeper, what would be the three main things that would encourage any international investor or a new business to start in Dubai versus other places in the world?
Well, I think there's a lot, there's a growing economy here, right? And a lot of it is also at the moment fueled by what's going on in Saudi Arabia as well. So there's a bigger growing customer base in the UAE. So it's a great market if you're an international business to understand, to explore and exploit. I think getting into the technical legal for a bit, what makes all this possible is being able to structure your holding company at a DIFC or an AGM level. So it means that it's possible for investors to lend money with confidence. It's possible to take, security over things like IP, which are crucial to business. That's where the real value is. It's possible to create employee share incentive schemes with confidence at that ADGM level. And then you have your subsidiaries operating onshore, both in Dubai, UAE, and further afield. But that kind of structure with the ability to kind of invest at a higher level under an English law system has resulted in massive growth, I think.
Wow.
Make sense?
It does. It does. We can see it all around us. A lot of people do not know what's going on behind the scene to start up a company over here, and why most of the world is coming to Dubai and the United Arab Emirates. And as well in Dubai, I think there's a huge movement happening in Abu Dhabi as well. What's your take on that?
Yeah, Abu Dhabi is a really interesting place. I think you can see a massive effort from the Abu Dhabi government, the sovereign wealth funds that are based there. Their ambition is to have, the top talent from the world building businesses in Dubai. They want to build unicorns in the UAE, and they want the talent to be based in Abu Dhabi. So there's huge incentives for top talent, startup founder teams to relocate and grow their businesses in Abu Dhabi, and we're definitely seeing that. I think the slight challenge is that Abu Dhabi is a slightly smaller place, slightly more sedate than the UAE, and obviously, people are attracted to Dubai for more than just work. The lifestyle it brings here. So, I think between Abu Dhabi and Dubai, you're seeing a huge influx of talent, and I think you'll continue to see that as the region continues to prosper.
Jaimie, you are the managing principal of Support Legal, a firm that started in the United Arab Emirates. Could you walk us a little bit or take us back in time and tell us about the history of this firm?
Yeah, it's a super interesting firm. So the firm was started officially 2017 in Abu Dhabi, it's set up in the ADGM, which is the Abu Dhabi Global Market, so one of the financial free zones in Abu Dhabi. And the genesis of the firm, it was set up by two guys, Patrick Rogers and Lee McMahon. They had both had distinguished careers at big international law firms. And back in 2017, the startup market in the UAE was just emerging. And one of the issues that startups faced was access to affordable legal services. At the time, startups could only be serviced by big international law firms or the established local law firms, all of which, are very expensive to engage lawyers. And so they, as founders, they wanted to focus more on this work. So their ambition was to build a firm that could service the startup industry in the UAE. They saw the huge potential of this market and saw that it was being grossly underrepresented by law firms, underserviced. So the way they went about achieving that was to create a very different model of law firm. What they wanted to do was provide affordable access to legal services, but also create a firm that they wanted to work at, somewhere that prioritized work-life balance, that allowed entrepreneurial lawyers to pursue other entrepreneurial ventures, allowed people to dedicate time to their families without compromising on their career aspirations. So that's really the kind of the genesis of the firm, the ethos. And what they've done in terms of growing the firm is managed to attract very senior lawyers from top international law firms and MNCs, multinational companies, and give them a lot more autonomy to run their specific areas of practice in a way that makes sense for them in terms of their career aspirations, their work-life aspirations, but also the way that they need to service their clients. And that may be flexibility on pricing, maybe flexibility on how they're engaged. It may be that they dedicate one day a week to working in-house with that client so that they can be on the ground, helping them out. Very different to a traditional law firm who just charge by the hour for specific expertise. So that's the essence of the firm and how it started.
Wow, that's also very innovative. And again, one more point to the legal firm side on regaining the reputation, because this kind of flexibility and having the understanding of working, let's say, one day from the client's office would, I think, would make a huge difference.
Yeah. Lawyers, one of the problems you see, with startups, one of the common issues is that because they're so tight on budgets, they'll often crib a template they found on the internet, right? Or they borrowed from a friend. And that works to a certain extent, right? There is legal protections built into most templates. But what it isn't tailored to do is properly reflect your specific business risks, your commercial objectives, and maybe doesn't reflect the way that you do business. And the only way you really get to do that is by engaging a lawyer who understands your business. How do you do that in a cost-effective way? I think until the emergence of law firms like Support Legal, it hasn't been possible to do it cost-effectively.
Wow, congratulations on that approach. I'm sure you're making a huge difference.
Well, I mean, we're still lawyers, but yeah, I like to think so.
Positive difference.
Yeah.
It's all about risk mitigation. Better safe than sorry. So congratulations again on what you're doing, Jaimie. I'm sure it's really making a difference. But behind the achievement, I'm sure you went through a lot of struggles and challenges. And if we understand that, what went behind the scenes, I'm sure the accomplishment would be more admirable. What failures and challenges you had to overcome and go through to be where you are today?
I mean, I think, so my career started out like a lot of lawyers. You join a law firm, they train you up, and then you kind of progress through the years and you become more senior. And as I said earlier, the model is up and out, right? You either rise to the top or at some point you're expected to leave. I kind of followed my wife, now wife, to Singapore. She got a job in Singapore. Shortly after, 2 months after joining a law firm in Singapore, they closed the office, made everyone redundant. So I joined another law firm. 18 months later, they did the same thing. It wasn't big enough, the office. They closed it. Everyone left. I then joined another law firm with one of the partners at the old firm I was at. And then 2 years later, I was told, not going to make partner. You might want to find another job. And to go through that 3 times in fairly quick succession, I think takes a massive impact, not only your confidence, but your mental health as well. I really struggled, I think. And, you add that to the fact that you're sacrificing time with a young family, and you just had young kids, to really, effectively killing yourself to prove yourself, and then be told it's not enough, you're not good enough, off you go. And that takes a real impact. Not sure that I fully realised the effect of it at the time. And then where do you go from there? You've got to build your confidence. And for me, I don't think I could have made such a leap to kind of step away from it completely without the support of my family and my amazing wife.
Thank you, Jaimie, for opening up and sharing your vulnerability. This is very impactful and admirable.
Yeah.
Family is everything. Family is everything. And they are lucky to have you. They're lucky to have you.
Thank you. So yeah, I had this journey where, I'd kind of bounced around from law firm to law firm, and then to eventually be told that, it wasn't good enough, was, I think it took a real toll, and perhaps not a bigger toll than I realised at the time. And, it's not without the support of my wife and friends and family that I was able to kind of step away from law, give myself the space I needed to, I think, really think about what I actually wanted to do. You're on this kind of treadmill without really thinking, is it worth it? And I needed that break and that space and time to really think about it. And the best thing I ever did, because I was able to then start creating a business based on the brand, but also more importantly, the values that I think were important to me. And people ask you all the time, what values do you find important? And most people will trot out the usual 5. Mm-hmm. You've really got to take the time, I think, to really deeply, introspectively think what is important to you. And by doing that and starting to communicate it, sometimes I communicated it well, other times like a fumbling idiot. But over time, you keep focusing on what's important to you, and you keep messaging that. And what you find is really interesting. You find that people you've never met start interacting with those values. You find that they're important to other people. And when you think to yourself initially, well, I'm starting this new legal practice, who's going to join me? And then suddenly you've got people all around the world messaging you, saying, we enjoy what you're doing, what you're saying resonates with us, how can we help? And honestly, it completely blew my mind. I'd gone from being like, I'm a failed lawyer at a big prestigious law firm, what are people going to think of me? To suddenly people reaching out, sharing their stories, suggestions, really wanting whatever this nascent business is to start succeeding. And what I thought would be the business that I wanted to grow very quickly turned into something completely different. And it was very much value driven. And I think that has been the most exciting part of the last few years for me.
Congratulations again. I'm astonished about the backstory of what you went through. That is really admirable.
Thank you.
Jaimie, we're going to come to a point in our show where I'm going to ask you 8 rapid fire questions. And we call it the innate, IN number 8. So please order these 8 words in how you see them most valuable to you.
Okay.
Family, health, money, wealth, work, community, environment, and relationships.
Well, I've got struggled to remember all of those, but definitely family is very core to me and has become increasingly so through my work life journey. And I think that leads to relationships. You can't, I think, expect to succeed without the support of your friends, your family, but they need it. You need to give back in return. So that's all about relationships, I think. And I think, on a kind of business level, relationships are so key. Rather than selling yourself, you're developing a relationship with someone and wondering how you can help each other. I think work was initially quite a big thing for me. My career was important, but over time, it's become less and less so. And, I think now the focus more is on health, because that's the foundational pillar for everything. If you don't have your health, how can you service your family, your friends, and your work? And wealth, again, a similar thing. When I was younger, it was important to me not to be wealthy, but to be comfortable, to be able to provide for my family, to make sure that people didn't have to worry about me from a financial perspective. And maybe this comes with age, but the trappings of wealth, are not important to me at all anymore. I think we're very blessed in Dubai. We have a very good quality of life.
We do, absolutely.
But obtaining more wealth is not something that motivates me.
Okay. How would you differentiate between money and wealth?
I think from a business perspective, money is an enabler. It's a tool. It enables you to hire people. It enables you to rent an office. It enables you to pay people, to build a brand, to engage in things that you think add value to not only your business, but your personal life. Wealth, it's a bit of an abstract concept. What is it to be wealthy? I think traditionally people think it means having a lot of money, but often find what's enough. There's always someone in Dubai who's got a lot more than you. So if that is what motivates you, I think it's very difficult to ever be truly satisfied. And life's just too short, to be honest.
Okay. It is. And we're definitely trying to leave our impact, and you're doing a great job at it.
Thank you.
Let's come to the fun part. Our favorites. What is your favorite dish?
For me, it has to be sushi. Takes me back to Tokyo and that amazing time.
Any type in particular?
Well, interesting. Before I moved to Tokyo, I didn't eat fish. I had a mental block.
Ooh.
And I soon realized that if I was ever gonna, if I didn't want to starve whilst living in Tokyo, I'd better get into fish. So I would say spicy salmon became my go-to and still one of my favorites.
Wow. And are you a good cook?
Terrible cook.
Welcome to the club. Now we come to question number 2. Who is your favorite band or artist?
So I grew up in the UK during the 90s. Big Britpop fan. It's got to be Oasis.
There you go. Question number 3. What's your favorite movie?
Well, as a lawyer, I'm a big fan of Few Good Men. Everyone wants to be Tom Cruise in that final courtroom scene where he's getting Jack Nicholson to confess. But I think, for a bit of escapism, it's got to be James Bond and Skyfall.
Ooh, okay. Can you elaborate more on that?
Well, he's just the coolest Brit that's ever lived. He's got the cars, the girls, the fashion, something I think all Brits aspire to. Great bit of escapism.
Very understandably. That brings us to question number 4. What is your favorite TV series?
I've binged The West Wing many times over.
Okay.
Aaron Sorkin's got to be one of the best screenwriters. The wit, the intelligence in his writing, something that I think definitely aspire to and will never achieve. So yeah, The West Wing.
Excellent choice. What's your favorite book?
So I don't know that I've got a favourite book. One that I really, really enjoyed recently is A Gentleman in Moscow. I don't know if you know about it. It's all about a former count, Russian count, who, when there's the Russian Revolution, gets confined to house arrest in a hotel, loses all the trappings of his former wealthy life. And it's all about him making a new life whilst the Russian Revolution is going on around him outside the walls of the hotel. The relationships he builds with people who live in the hotel. And I think it's fundamentally about being okay with your situation and making the most of it, whatever that is. And it's beautifully written.
It's about acceptance.
I think it's about living for today and making the most of your circumstance rather than just missing the past or hoping for better in the future, but living in the present.
What's your favorite animal?
Well, we've just got a new puppy, which I was very much against getting. I was press ganged into it by my wife and 2 daughters, and we all love him. So Max the Maltipoo would be my favourite animal.
Oh, that's so cute. Jaimie, who is your role model?
Role model would be one of the first people I ever worked for. A lawyer called David Breakall. He was unbelievably smart, unbelievably supportive of young lawyers, very confident in himself, encyclopedic knowledge of the law. But he kind of wore it with a little bit of disdain, I would say. He was too cool to be a lawyer. Definitely someone who didn't take it too seriously, but was exceptionally good at it. I think just outside of law as well, that's a great way to be. I think, very comfortable in your own skin, and very supportive of others. And yeah, he was a real role model and inspiration, I think.
Wow.
So for me, a huge role model and support in my life has been my wife, Amelia. Probably sounds quite corny, but she's just so she's the most intelligent person I've ever met. And it's infuriating because when you're debating something with her, she'll win every argument. And you'll be like, oh, well, I had no idea that you felt so passionately about that. And she doesn't. She just loves to chew the fat with you and play devil's advocate. And it's just so convincing. It's infuriating. But she is not only one of the most intelligent people I have, but she's just the most loyal person, not just to me, but to all her friends.
Wow, how beautiful. How beautiful. Wow.
Yeah, anyone's got a problem, she's there immediately. Yeah.
You're both lucky to have each other and have the great family with your 2 daughters and your new puppy as well. That's beautiful. Bless you all.
Thank you.
We come to our last question, the 8th question, the special number for a very, very special theme. What is your favorite city?
So it has to be Tokyo. Just so much happened there in my life. It was such a formative time in my life. Yeah, met my wife. It's where I really realized that there was a life outside of the UK. Meeting people with different cultures, getting to know them. Brits, I think, have a reputation for assuming that we gave culture to the world. That, we're the most... Yeah, but I think Brits have a certain reputation where they think that life outside of London is just another place. And it's not until you travel the world, meet new people, new perspectives, that you really grow as a person. And that journey started for me in Tokyo.
Jaimie, I cannot thank you enough for the session today and all of the insights, but I still do have one final question. Which are your final thoughts and advices for young entrepreneurs who would like to set up their business, whether it's a law firm or just another kind of business?
I think the one key piece of advice I would give is that often the fear of failing is much greater than the reality. I think anyone who starts out new to business, new to a venture, and thinks it's going to succeed, probably it's a bit naive. What you end up building will not be what you set out to do. But what you'll realize is that you'll grow with the support of a community. And I think success is not binary. It's not, yes, I've done this, or no, I didn't do that. It's a journey. It's a growth journey. And part of the fun is being on that journey and being open to where it takes you and not having preconceived notions about it.
Jamie Tredgold, thank you very much for being part of the Inners and for the session today. I'm looking forward to having you in the future for more legal and life insights.
Ali, thank you so much for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you very much. Hello, Inners community. Hope you enjoyed this session. We'd like to know your comments and thoughts. Most importantly, please do share the episodes and the micro content. The purpose of this podcast is to exchange experiences and share knowledge and raise awareness. So be part of the change. Create your waves. Let the ripple effect reach to everyone, where all of good action comes full circle. And please do remember to hit the like button and the subscribe button, and I'll see you next session.